Let's take you live now to Alex Cadier, who is outside the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Alex, thank you so much for your time. Paint a picture for us of what was happening while we were watching proceedings unfold inside the court. What was happening outside?
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see, things have now calmed down behind me at the Peace Palace, the International Court of Justice, the top United Nations court. But earlier today, exactly where I was standing, you had hundreds, up to 1,000 pro-Israeli protesters were gathered here first with their flags expressing their support for the Israeli defense in this case. And shortly thereafter, a similar number, around 1,000 pro-Palestinian protesters just down the road. And between them, the Peace Palace and a line of Dutch law enforcement police officers, including police horses, and those protests went through quite peacefully. There were no major points of tension, but certainly the intensity of the support on either side shows you how polarizing and the strength of feeling behind this case. We've seen that support expressed in those pro-Palestinian marchers, protesters, a lot of South African flags, of course. We've heard a lot of expressions of solidarity with South Africa and support from those supporting the Palestinian cause. So certainly it was a very energized day. It was at times a very tense day here in The Hague, but now that the judges have adjourned for the day, it'll certainly be a calm for the evening. The Israeli legal team will be back here tomorrow, and we expect more protests when that happens.
And Alex, just before I let you go, let's talk about some of those who were gathered outside court, as you've painted a picture for us. What did they have to say about these submissions that were made by the South African legal team?
Yeah, well, if you ask the people who were supporting the Palestinian cause, they were certainly very heartened by South Africa. I spoke to some young people who had come here from Germany to join the protest, who said very clearly South Africa is taking a moral leadership position in the world. That is how a lot of people felt about this case, rallying around what they called South African leadership, and that was certainly expressed by the pro-Palestinian side. Now, if you look at those supporting Israel, we saw someone with a sign saying, "How dare you, South Africa?" And there was a real strength of feeling there as well of not understanding South Africa's case, in line with what Israeli officials have said in the last few days in the run-up to this landmark legal moment here in The Hague. So certainly a strength of feeling on both sides. The people supporting Palestine very much appreciative of South African efforts, and those on the Israeli side harshly critical and a little baffled by the move by South Africa. If anything, the situation here in The Hague, these protests show you not just how things are polarized here, but how this conflict has been polarizing all over the world.
And let's talk about then the proceedings tomorrow. What happens as Israel is expected to make its own submissions, especially given the meticulous and thorough case that South Africa has presented through its 84-page application?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That will be the Israeli legal team led by a British lawyer will be here to make their defense, to push back on those South African allegations. We understand they are not going to challenge the jurisdiction of the court, as might have been expected a few days ago. Instead, they will engage with that submission by South Africa, and they will engage with the judges by saying very clearly that Israeli forces are upholding international law in their efforts in Gaza. That is the Israeli position. We've seen a lot of pushback in the press or in the media as well by Israeli officials. They will claim that although innocent lives are being lost in Gaza, they are an unfortunate side effect of the conflict, which they say was started by Hamas on October 7th when they killed more than 1,000 Israeli civilians. That will be the Israeli defense here tomorrow. The South African legal team had 3.5 hours in front of the judges to plead their case. We imagine a similar time frame will be given to the Israeli legal team here at the International Court of Justice.
And finally then, Alex, have we had sight of the papers, Israelis' papers, that is?
We haven't had sight of those papers yet, but certainly we understand that that self-defense element will be such a crucial and central part of that legal defense, pointing to that attack, that terrorist attack by Hamas on the 7th of October. We actually heard from the South African Justice Minister, Ronald Lamola, in referencing that attack, saying no matter how atrocious, no matter how horrible an attack is waged, it does not justify a country breaching the 1948 Genocide Convention. And that certainly is the crux of the argument. Israel is pleading self-defense, where South Africa saying the response was really disproportionate.
Alex, thank you so much for that update. That was Alex Cadier, SABC News correspondent, live for us in The Hague.